Alright, so our final movie in this series is looking at what happens when we rotate a shape. Now, this is probably the hardest one. It's probably best to do it visually, is to think about what's going to happen. And really, when we rotate, the trick is to work out your point. When you rotate, your point's still going to be, here we're rotating around this point here, the axis, 0.00. Your point's still going to be the same distance from there. And then we're going to draw a right angle. So A is going to, we just want to rotate around clockwise. You can go the other way if it's anti-clockwise. You keep a right angle triangle here and you want to put your A there. It can be quite tricky to work out where your point is going. We know in our heads that if we rotate this shape, we can probably look at this rectangle and go, I'm going to end up with a rectangle that is like that, straight away. That's what rotating that, oh, sorry, going a little bit far. That's what rotating that shape is going to look like. But sometimes it can be a little bit tricky with that, and it's good to think about it point by point. So probably the only other thing that I'd really like you guys to start thinking about is when I rotate, what's happening to my distance from my x-axis here and my y-axis. And hopefully we start to notice something, that when I rotate this point A, here I'm 2 from the x. And then when I rotate it, I'm now 2 from the y. And here, point A is 2 from the y-axis. And now my new point is 2 from the x-axis. All right, let's look at another one. So I'm going to rotate, let's say I rotate point B around. So point B, same distance, I'm going to rotate 90. Even though my lines are a little bit off there, I know that I'm going to be in the right spot because my line's the same distance. But how did I know to aim for this little dot here, this little corner of the four down, 2 across? And that's that whole idea of here, I was 2 from the x-axis, so now I'm going to be 2 from the y-axis. I've moved around from this quarter here, and now I'm over in this quarter here. So each time, if you're in this quarter and you rotate 90 degrees, you're going to be over in this quarter now. If I was rotating anti-clockwise 90, I'd be in this quarter. And the next step to remember, I've changed my quarters, or quadrants that I'm in is the technical term. But now, if I was 2 from the x here, then I'm 2 from the y on this one. If I was 4 from the y here, when I rotate 90, I'm now 4 from the y in this one. And that sort of explains what the pattern that we're about to see. And that's what you want to sort of keep an eye on to keep if you check, particularly if you ever have to rotate a shape that might be not as easy to transform around. So this one here, we can visualize how it's going to end up, but sometimes you might get a tricky one. So let's look at how this all looks in our points. So we're going to go around and we're going to rotate our shapes. That one's going to be there. And then I'm just going to fill in the rest of this because I think hopefully that little brief explanation. And you're more than welcome to, if you know how to reflect a rectangle and then look at the shapes. That's probably the trick to do it. All right, so now I've got my new rectangle there. And I know that this point here is going to be A, because it's going around this way. So that means this point here, so if I was in this quadrant, I'm now in this quadrant, so that's B has gone from this one to this one. So that's B, that makes this one, it's gone over here, C, and D has gone over into this one, so that's D. All right, let's fill out our coordinates before. So hopefully we're pretty familiar with writing coordinates now. So A is minus 4, comma 2, B is 4, comma 2. Same height, different distance. C is 4 minus 2. And D is minus 4 minus 2. And if we want to just look at our points briefly, this is something that's not really part of this, just something to think about, is B is in this quarter here, this one here, and both my points are positive. D is in this one here, and my Y value is positive, but my X value is negative. So every time you're in one of these quarters, you've got a certain pattern that's different to the other ones. In this bottom quarter here, both are negative. My X and my Y are negative. I've gone down and I've gone backwards. Here I've gone down, but I've gone forwards. So in this quarter in here, our point C starts off at 4 and then -2. Oh, sorry, point C. All right, so let's have a look at what happens when I translate it. So now I just have to look at my new points and write in where they've gone to. So A is now at 2, 4. B is now at -4, 2. C is now at -4, -2. And D is now at minus. Oh no, I've mucked that up. Ignore Mr. Williams here, sorry guys. B is 2, -4. We've gone down to 1. And C is -2 in the X, -4. And D is now -2 in the X direction and 4 up, so 4 in the Y direction. And what hopefully we're starting to notice here is, see how I was at -4 and 2, and now I'm at 2, 4. So my distances have changed. Now it's not as simple as having a little rule where you can flip them, because depending from which quarter I've gone to the other quarter, that depends on what I do with my sign. But for each transformation in a rotation, you should have your X and Y values swapping. So so regardless of whether they're backwards or forwards, left or right or up or down, they should be the same distance from the line. But now your X value, if it was 4 from the line, it's now 4 from the Y. If it was 2 from the Y, it's now 2 from the X. So that's how we sort of want to check that. They want to be flipped, and they want to be the same distance apart, and then it's up to you to work out what are you doing with the minuses and the pluses and minuses, or the signs for this. And that's why you look at your drawing. So it's particularly if you get this in a question, make sure you draw out your graph and what it looks like when you rotate it around, because you want to know. That'll give you a huge idea for where this point has gone. If it's gone across like that, then I know that it's gone across like that. I was in this quarter, now I'm in that quarter. That gives me a different value for my positives and negatives.